Hello and welcome to Joe's super amazing useful video on the farming industry of Canada. Here we will talk about things such as farming or other stuff that you likely already know. Get ready for the learning of a lifetime. Wow! Our country grows a lot of different types of foods, but did you know that not all food can be grown in the same place? Wow, who knew? Wow, our country sure can grow a lot of different types of foods. Who would have guessed that our country could practically feed itself off of the land that we have? Our country should definitely stop buying foods from other countries since we have enough land to feed ourselves, especially evil countries such as the United States. We grow large amounts of dairy and livestock in the south, along with fruit, tobacco, and many different types of vegetables. Our wheat is more commonly grown in the prairies because the only thing the prairies can grow is the wheat. The beef and cattle industry is also very strong in the prairies. We grow a lot of potatoes from the east coast because the Atlantic Ocean makes the climate really, really good for growing potatoes there. Wow! Wow! Holy crap, look at this map! We sure have a lot of ecozones in Canada. Wow! Our country has 15 ecozones, and if you think the name of these are all hard to remember, imagine the pain that someone would go through trying to put them in a project. Talk about hard work and dedication. Wow! Our 15 ecozones are the Arctic Cordillera, Northern Arctic, the Southern Arctic, the Tasia Plains, the Tasia Shield, the Tasia Cordillera, the Boreal Shield, the Boreal Plains, the Boreal Cordillera, the Prairies, the Pacific Maritime, the Hudson's Plains, and the Mixed Wood Plains. Wow! The Arctic Cordillera, Northern Arctic, and the Southern Arctic are all three very cool ecozones. They are all very cold, and farming is non-existent because of the severe cold and very small growing season. They are all part of the Arctic climate region. The Taiga Plains, Taiga Shield, and Taiga Cordillera are all three ecosystems with lots of trees. Farming is not practiced here because the land is unfit for farming, from the hills, the forests, the cold weather, the evil tree monsters, and etc. They overlap the Arctic, the mountain, and the boreal climate regions. Those three regions are all very terrible for farming. When you think of the prairies, you probably think of massive wheat fields, lots of farmers, RCMP, cowboys, more farming, and lots of wheat. This is because the farming is really, really popular in the prairies. The climate is best suited for wheat, and only suited for wheat, so if they try to grow anything else, it will probably die. Because of the distance it is from the sea, the balanced temperature, as well as the rainfall, it makes wheat conditions really good for growing. They are part of the prairie climate region, and they are part of a continental climate. Wow. In the Pacific Maritime, farming is somewhat common. The mild weather and common rainfall makes a large diversity of vegetation possible in a very large growing season. It is part of the Pacific climate region. The problem with farming, though, is that most of the land here is used by the city, and they're constantly putting more buildings there. Similarly to the problem that they're having in southern Ontario, where all those evil capitalist cities want to buy up the farming and starve out the people. Oh no! In the Hudson's Plains, farming is not practiced here because of the highly infertile soil, and farmers know better than to farm here. Most of the land here is wet, and the forests are also getting in the way of the farmers here. It is part of the boreal climate region. The Mixed Wood Plains, located in southern Ontario, are wonderful for farming because of their warm temperature and long growing seasons. However, the problem here is the urban sprawl. Similar to Vancouver, the farmer land is being bought out by cities which wish to add more buildings, resulting in less and less farmland. Intensive agriculture is a system of cultivation using large amounts of labor and capital relative to land area. Large amounts of labor and capital are necessary for the application of fertilizer, insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides to growing crops, and capital is particularly important to the acquisition and maintenance of high-efficiency machinery for planting, cultivating, and harvesting, as well as irrigation equipment where required. Optimal use of these materials and machines produces significantly greater crop yield per unit of land than extensive agriculture, which uses little capital or labor. As a result, a farm using intensive agriculture will require less land than an extensive agriculture farm to produce a similar profit. In practice, however, the increased economies of efficiencies of intensive agriculture are often encourage farm operators to work very large tract in order to keep their capital investments in machinery productively engaged, i.e. busy. On the level of theory, the increased productivity of intensive agriculture enables the farmer to use a relatively smaller land area that is located close to the market, where land values are high relative to labor and capital. This is true in many parts of the world. If costs of labor and capital, outlays for machinery and chemicals, and costs of storage, where desired or needed, and transportation to market are too high, to operate relatively close to markets, many large-scale farm operators, especially in such relatively vast and agriculturally advanced nations such as Canada and the evil United States, practice intensive agriculture in areas where land values are relatively low, at great distances from markets, and farm enormous tracts of land with high yields. However, in societies, overproduction, beyond market demands, often result in a diminished profit as a result of depressed prices. Wow! Extensive agriculture, on the other hand, is a system of crop cultivation using small amounts of labor and capital in relation to the area of land being farmed. The crop yield in extensive agriculture depends primarily on the natural fertility of the soil, terrain, climate, and the availability of the water. Extensive agriculture is distinguished from intensive agriculture in the latter, employing large amounts of labor and capital applies one to apply fertilizers, insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides, and to plant, cultivate, and often harvest mechanically. Because extensive agricultural produces a lower yield per unit of land, its use commercially requires large quantities of land in order to be profitable. This demand for land means that extensive agriculture must be carried where land values are low in relation to labor and capital, in which in turns that extensive agriculture is practiced and population densities are low and thus usually at some distance from primary markets. If you think that was just too much talking and want a more simpler version of what I just said, just look at the picture on the screen with the extensive versus intensive and the information underneath it. Wow! Arable land is land where it's possible to cultivate and farm on. Not all land is arable, but many non-arable lands can be turned into arable land. Sadly, in Canada, this isn't exactly the case, because many of our non-arable land is non-arable because it's way too cold.
It's over.
We cannot change the weather of the nature, so even though we can change the land, the weather will still wipe out our crops and freeze them to death. New arable land can make more food, which can reduce starvation. This outcome also makes a country more self-sufficient and politically independent, because food importation is reduced. A good example of a country that needs to do this is Canada, because we rely so heavy on the evil United States for our food, that one day, if, say, they wanted to cut us off the food supply or keep the food to themselves, we could effectively starve out, because we do not have enough food to feed into all of ourselves. Wow! What is genetically modified food? Well, I'm glad you asked, class. Genetically modified organisms, GMO, is an entity that has had their genetic makeup modified through genetic engineering techniques. The organisms used in GMO include yeast, plants, fish, and mammals in the case of food products. GMOs have been genetically altered for a number of reasons, not necessarily associated with health or nutrition. Other terms meaning GMO are genetically engineered, genetically altered, and genetically improved. Although this sounds like super cool scientific technology, GMOs can be good and they can be bad. GMOs could be used to, say, add more mineral enhancements and added health benefits. But sadly, most of the people that are in charge of the GMOs in the foods are run by capitalists and people who own companies. And as we all know, capitalists are evil to the core. So of course they want to poison us all. So the GMOs that they use are used to help preserve the food and things of that sort. So the food doesn't go bad, they can make more money, and they can poison us, which are their three favorite things. Genetically modified GMOs have great potential and could be really great, but sadly, the farming companies of our era are not using them in a good way and are instead using them in a negative way. The price of GMO-free food is usually more expensive because you can't use GMOs to grow more food. So many people have to decide whether, hey, do I want to eat the more expensive, healthy food or eat the cheaper, less healthy food? It's a hard choice sometimes. Green belts, not to be confused with red belts or gray belts, are very interesting and offer a number of benefits for both urban and rural populations by preventing the urban sprawl. It helps protect agriculture activities from the unique character of rural communities. Urban population, on the other hand, is provided in access to an open space which offers opportunities for outdoor activities and access to nice, clean air. Areas that are designated as greenbelts must not be built upon, because greenbelt is defined as an open space. However, that does not necessarily mean that no buildings at all can be erected in greenbelts. Buildings for agricultural uses, sanitation facilities, and etc. are usually allowed. In some cases, it is also possible to change the use of land in a greenbelt and even gain permission for other structures, which are not usually allowed. Farming is usually incredibly popular in the Greenbelt because this is a place where farmers can farm their land and not be harassed by evil companies that want to buy it from them. Greenbelt land value is usually much lower because since companies are not allowed to build on it anyways, they have no interest in buying it. Greenbelts usually are very good. However, those people that really like to complain often complain that, hey, oh no, it stops the community from building more. Oh no, we can't kill the environment. Oh no. But that's just them complaining. Greenbelts are super duper mega good. Oh no! Chemical runoff is very bad and can cause much harm to an ecozone. Chemical runoff comes from the fertilizer, and when it rains, the chemicals of the fertilizer run off into the lakes with all their chemical goodness. Inside the fertilizer, the phosphates and nitrates feed the algae, causing them to grow like crazy, which causes a massive algae boom, which causes too much oxygen, because algae produces oxygen. Then, after, that will cause the algae to die, resulting them to fall to the bottom of the lake, where they will be consumed by bacteria. But every time that bacteria consumes an algae, it releases excessive amounts of CO2, which eventually drowns all life in the pool, causing a dead zone. And then everything is dead! Oh no! Dead zones usually have no life in them for a very long period of time. It can disrupt natural life and habitats and things of that sort. So if you ever become a farmer, make sure you're responsible with your fertilizers. You don't let it run off into the lake and kill everything, because if you do that, we'll all die. Oh no! The CLI, the Canadian Land Inventory, is a way of displaying information on maps about land for what it's useful for. Many of these ways that it displays are things for woodlands and farming, which will tell you if the farming industry or wood industry is there. Also, the mining industry and things of that sort are also included. The CLI has many different ways of displaying information on land, and is not very commonly used. Wow, Joe, you keep talking about land and all these land categories and things like that, but exactly how big is 1 acre? Well, I'm glad you asked. An acre isn't the only measurement that farmers use. They also like to use the term hectare. 1 hectare is exactly 2.47105,381 acres, and that's a lot of land considering that farmers will often own thousands of these at once. Wow, isn't that cool? Farmers sure have a lot of land. There is a large variety of reasons for why someone would want to quit farming. Imagine if you were a farmer. Canadian farmers constantly have to deal with the harsh weather and bad season, which can obliterate their crops, resulting in a bad harvest. I think the government should provide subsidies for our farmers. That would cover the costs of bad harvest and help them expand their farm and help them grow more food, which means more eating, and more eating means more fun. Our government should also abolish quotas from Canadian farmers, which would allow them to sell more food, which could flood the market with cheaper foods, allowing everyone to have almost free food. Evil capitalists would complain that this would hinder the amount of profits that farmers would make because food would be too cheap and they couldn't sell it for nearly as much, which would result in the eventuality of them selling out or abandoning their farm. But this could be stopped if the state were to intervene and establish crown farms. These farms could be owned by the government and allow the country to get cheap, constant food supplies throughout. Imagine how much poverty would end if the prices of milk, egg, and vegetables and other produce reduced to 10% to what it is now. Lack of food would be a thing of the past. And besides, look back at history. We all know that government-owned farms turn out pretty well, and they don't have any bad side effects at all. And considering that we are right next to the evil fascist capitalist imperialist machine that is the United States, we need to seize control of our farming industry and grant food for all righteous Canadian citizens. Only then will we be able to survive. For Canada, for the greater good of all. Death to capitalism!